Every once in a while, a blind squirrel finds a nut. And in this circumstance, I guess I'm the squirrel. And the nut is the occasional opportunity to drive something really weird and cool. For me, I was introduced to a nice guy, Jonathan Finstrom, who's a past professional hockey player up at the M1 Concours during the Speed Festival. And he had this cool race car I'd never seen before. It was a Wolf. And I was like, fascinating. I'm pretty sure that Walter Wolf Racing, when they first had their Formula One team, was like about the only Formula One team to ever win their first race. They made some very beautiful cars in the 70s, and of course the Countaches and things this guy had are somewhat legendary. The company's name was bought some time ago, and they're building new racing cars under the Wolf name, which is really cool. So the new car, I'm seeing this thing, it's colorful. It looks like a Formula car, but kind of not, because it's got fenders over the wheels, so it's bodied, but it has elements of both, kind of like full width wing, unlike shorter wings like Formula cars, and a rather sculpted aero. It's got a full halo on it, very low, single seat. The wheels appear to be identical to what's on the Genius Garage Lotus Exospheres. It's got exhaust coming out the side. I'm like, what's this powered by? It's got a 650 horsepower Ford V8 in it. I'm like, what? What's this thing weigh? Like 620 kilograms? And I don't do my conversions very well, but I'm pretty sure that's less than 1,400 pounds. I thought about it for a second. I'm like, hold on. This thing's got a better power ratio than a new Indy car, like a current Indy car, because I'm pretty sure that new Indy cars, depending on the boost they're making, will make between 550 and 700 horsepower at the upper end. All said and done, that's 200 pounds, maybe more, lighter weight than a current Indy car. So this thing will move. Like, what's this all about? It's cool. It's kind of cool. So we're sitting there hanging out. Johnny O'Connell has been the past Corvette factory driver, was there and does some coaching and drove one of those once. And we just got to talking. And Jonathan thought about maybe we do something at a track sometime. And I was talking to him later. Cool guy. He ended up inviting me out to the Audubon Country Club, which is in the greater Chicagoland area. So when I got there, everybody was really nice, and got the opportunity to see some amazing cars at the track. Just in general, some track day stuff going on. And they had a Miata set up for track days, as well as a Radical ready to go, and the Wolf, and let me drive all of them, which actually I really appreciated, because I'd been at Audubon once. I had never driven the full course. I have no idea where it even goes on half the track. I was like, yes, I appreciate letting me have a just normal car to drive around and see where this track goes first. So, and there was another friend of his who had never been on a track really. So it was kind of fun, because I helped just be kind of like supportive and getting him out in the track in the Miata. So it's kind of, helping just give some basic instruction to help making him be faster. So I got to go out and scout it out in that car. And that was kind of fun. And then a little bit later, I get in the Radical, one of the new ones. I'm familiar with the early Radicals, and they haven't changed like hugely in concept since the early days. This was one of the 4-cylinder motorcycle powered ones. And it was just a neat morning, and everybody's really nice in terms of going over what's expected of the cars. I'm like, what minimum temperatures do I need to see before I'm on it? What's maximum? What do I got to do? Do we need to tape off the radiator? All those little things you do with race cars and the Radicals. Whenever I drive somebody else's vehicle, I am 1,000 times more respectful and protective of it than my own, because one, they're kind enough to invite me to experience what they love. So the best way you can honor that is to enjoy it, of course. Don't mess it up. And also, and to be really honest, I don't feel like paying for fixing other people's cars. So it comes up for a little later for the Wolf. I will say this, the car does not intimidate me, but I have a huge level of respect for what it's capable of doing. And I also have full knowledge of its capability of doing things that I don't want to happen and be responsible for issues. So managing the car appropriately for a machinery such as a race car, especially being brand new in it, with a brand new track, with other cars on the track, with super high performance aspects. So I was excited to do it, but this isn't like a super duper fun time like we're gonna go drive go-karts at Cedar Point. It's a bit of a, an honored job, and I look forward to it. But the Wolf, this big nasty V8 one, is the flagship one of the Wolf cars. And they make some that are turbo 4-cylinder. There's one that's, I think, a Prius-powered motorcycle power, which is quite a good car, a little smaller. But the big one, the monocoque, is somewhat like a Formula car, but it's wider, it's bigger, so it could accommodate a person of healthier proportions. Of course, it's got the halo for safety and bodywork and such, and aero and whatnot. And just a tremendous power to weight ratio. Paddle shifting, of course, but it's 3 pedals, so you can shift both up and down without having to lift or clutch. Use the clutch in the pits and when you're stopping. Beautiful readout, similar to the Exosphere or any modern current high-end race car. I got a brief rundown on it with him. He was talking about it, and this is a newer car he had, and they're improving it. They're tuning it. And it was a cold day. Jonathan was actually fighting with it a little bit as it was getting up to temperature, and he mentioned to me, he's like, hey, if it might be being such a pain in the butt for you. You might take it out one lap and say, hey, let's redo this or whatever. So I'm going to be respectful of it, but I'm like, okay, let's see what we got. So the first thing was nice in getting it up and understanding all systems to fire it up is. With the big V8, it was kind of cool because you just hit the starter and it's like, runs perfectly. And I'm used to all kinds of goofy old vintage crap with carburetors that don't want to run under whatever, that you got to keep going and all that jazz. And so that was cool. And then he's like, you don't need to give it any gas in the pits. The clutch modulated so nicely and the car's so lightweight. You literally just let the clutch out nice. You don't have to touch the throttle around. The first thing I want to do is just make sure there's some temperature in these tires and brakes before I'm getting on it at all, because hypothetical if in doing a new car, if it had some kooky power band thing, or if something went off, if there was a flat spot or a misshift or something and you were closer to the limit, you don't want something that'll break traction and put you sideways, or even just dropping one wheel in wet grass, as I found out in Pro 2000 the year before, might put you in a situation that is unrecoverable quickly and become expensive. And I didn't want to do that. It was a brutal car in terms of power. It was awesome. Sounded awesome, but it was built really well. And I'm like, this is cool. And I saw where it would kind of want to buck and whatnot, but if you just maintain a calm firmness with it, you can get into it. And I was letting it come up in a temperature, on the brakes, on the throttle, on the brakes, on the throttle, like you'd see on a warm-up lap and racing like that and getting into it, and then start carrying some speed. So I stayed out there and I saw the issues and I'm like, okay, it's being kind of a pain about upshifting, and it's downshifting well, but you have to have the right timing with the V8, but it slows down really quickly. And I was seeing the aero balance. The one thing that's interesting about this car is while it has a better power to weight ratio than an Indy car, it doesn't have the aero of the Indy car. It does have traction control, which is nice, but I'm not going to rely on that to save me in somebody else's car. So I'm going to drive it with that. So I was coming up to speed more and getting at it. The thing I liked about the Wolf in this regard is it reminded me of a lot of the vintage racing cars I adore, Can-Am cars, things that Formula 5000. Of course, it had the American V8 in it, so it sounded good like that. But it was modern and good in so many ways. And it reminds me of like why I have a Triumph Thruxton motorcycle and why I like that so much. Because that bike's from the 2000s, but it has all of the same charm and personality of a 60s, 70s British motorcycle. Except it's not a piece of garbage like a 60s or 70s British motorcycle. No offense, but let's be real. So you get your cake and you get to eat it too. And with this, I just decided to stay out longer. And I was enjoying it, going a little faster and going around that. Fast enough that I was finding the limitations of the suspension and the aero in it. On Autobahn, there's an interesting place. It's not quite a Flugplatz like the old Nürburgring, but on one of the back straightaways. And right when you crest the hill, you can see the limit of the aero somewhat, because the front, it's still sticking, but the suspension on it had a monoshock system. It was pretty simple in a way, and it works. This car's light, but I could feel the front wheels kind of dance over these bumps. And it was interesting because when you're managing the car and thinking of it and going at those kind of speeds as you're transitioning from the right side where you tracked out in the car to more to the left for your brake downshift once to the high-speed sweeper, when you crest that hill, you really want the car to be pointed straight and a firm grip, but not too firm. And I thought to myself, how I was racing and you had to do some interesting things over these bumps. It might get a little hairy. I guess I like that kind of stuff when you start getting on the outer limits of car and speed when that happens. But it was just really enjoyable. So I stayed out the whole session. Darn thing was fast. I mean, it was properly fast. But something I enjoyed too is coming back with Jonathan, of course, really good driver and engineer on that, developed a number of cars. He's like, well, what'd you think? And I told him, talked about a little bit understeer and shifting and things we're getting around and how, kind of talking about how to tune that out and what I thought on the handling characteristics of it and developing it. He goes, feel the tires. And they look good. Rear tires were warm. Front tires were relatively cool. They're not working enough. So we pulled the covers off so I could see the suspension and whatnot. And I said, mechanically, when it's down in aero, it's understeering a lot. And I'm seeing the limitations of the shocks in the front. I think it would do better if it had conventional bell cranks to dual, and it needs an adjustable sway fin in the rear, I think. And then it's just a matter of balancing the aero, and the car's great. I mean, the tiny little things with regard to shifting and whatnot, I'd be happy when it's warm and such. It's an awesome car. And what I came to learn is the things that I saw and thought to suggest are just I'm like, if it was my car, this is what I would do. Apparently, those are the updates coming from Wolf in Italy. There was a big eye-opening moment for me with the Wolf in thinking of it and relating the power ratio of an Indy car, because they're relatively affordable when you think of like Uber League racing cars. I mean, $200,000 in this area for any one of these things. I could be wrong, but it's in that area. Now that's a lot of money, but in the realm of massively fast current racing cars, let's think about this in relation to IndyCar. Current carbon fiber monocoque top and all. FI approved, all that jazz. It's current and appropriate. Better power to weight ratio than an Indy car. And the entire car costs new less than just an engine lease for an Indy car would cost for a year. What? Why is Indy car need to be as expensive it is? And it hit me immediately. I'm like, it doesn't. If they just built the Wolf a little differently, let's say they made a more slender monocoque, a little different suspension, and did the body differently, and especially since it's more full bodied, but it gave it a lot more aero, it would beat an Indy car for a fraction of the price. Which, for me, being the deal seeker I am in the world of cars, it was like exciting to see that existed, but also it annoyed the heck out of me that the premier racing league in America, IndyCar racing, is way more expensive than I think it should be. If those cars are making 550 to 700 horsepower, big deal. We have crate motors that are available, American V8s that are all American that can do it. Why is it so expensive? It does not need to be. And I'm like, well, shoot, this makes me want to get into race car building and manufacturing, because the things that can be built when you don't limit yourself to maybe past thinking or like sandbox rules are incredible.
When you get a ticket, no matter where it happens, it's more important than ever to fight every one. And the perfect partner in that fight is the Ticket Clinic. When you get a ticket, you're facing costly insurance premium increases, points on your license, fines, risk of suspension, jail time, and they can help you avoid all of that. They've got offices in Florida and in California, but they can help you fight a ticket through their network of attorneys no matter where in the United States you get one. You can text a picture of your ticket to 305-305, or you can check them out now at the link in the description below. So thank them for their support of VINwiki, of CarTrek, and fight your ticket with the Ticket Clinic.